And now, for your regularly scheduled deprogramming. Our top story today, by request through our producers club, comes from scientificamerican.com, not one that we reference very often. Do we live in a simulation? Chances are about 50-50. But that's exactly what the simulators want us to think. The actual odds are about 99-1. Which way? I'm not sure, because I don't know which way the simulators want us to think. This is a fun story though, and one that we haven't really pondered in a while, and how it relates to everything else that we talk about here on Adam versus the Man. The subtitle: gauging whether or not we dwell inside someone else's computer may come down to advanced AI research or measurements at the frontiers of cosmology. Now, see, this sounds like a bid for government funding. How many sentences did it take for me to get to get into that? Well, measurements at the frontiers of cosmology. Well, that just now we're talking about government spending on space exploration, and as much as I am pro space exploration, I'm still against stealing from people in order to pay for it. And this is cosmology. I know this is sometimes confused with cosmetology. That's something totally else. The measures at the frontiers of cosmology are about can we fix your unibrow? That kind of thing. And we're talking about astronomy here, not astrology. Although I know some people screw that up too. This morning we did some we got some astrological forecasts, and got my horoscope read. So that was kind of fun. But no, it just, of all the ways that we can fool ourselves, of all the fascinating ideas to ponder with this supercomputer nature has blessed it with us with, do we live in a simulation? It is not often that a comedian gives an astrophysicist goosebumps when discussing the laws of physics. But is that how astrophysicists, is that why they become astrophysicists? Man, talking about astrophysics just gives me goosebumps no matter who's talking about it. But comic Chuck Nice managed to do just that in a recent episode of the podcast Star Talk. The show's host, Neil deGrasse Tyson, had just explained the simulation argument, the idea that we could be virtual beings living in a computer simulation. If so, the simulation would most likely create perceptions of reality on demand rather than simulate all of reality all of the time, much like a video game optimized to render only the parts of a scene visible to a player. Maybe that's why we can't travel faster than the speed of light, because if we could, we'd be able to get to another galaxy, said Nice, the show's co-host, prompting Tyson to gleefully interrupt before they can program it. The astrophysicist said, delighting at the thought, so the programmer put in that limit. This is, I don't mind. In fact, I celebrate the necessity of speculation in science. You have to dream. You have to think of questions that we don't have the answers to yet. But when you're fantasizing about the programmer of this reality, maybe they put this here for your entertainment for this. Maybe they put that there to confuse you. Maybe these kittens aren't real. Kittens, they're just like their cuteness cannot be scientifically explained. So, but based on what we know now, so we have to look for other explanations, like maybe we're living in a simulation. Yeah, all right, CJR, there you go. There are our kittens. Such conversations may seem flippant, but ever since Nick Bostrom of the University of Oxford wrote a seminal paper about the simulation argument in 2003, philosophers, physicists, technologists, and yes, comedians I've been grappling with the idea of our reality being a simulacrum. I don't know what that word means. I think I know what it means in this context. Simulacrum. Let's just Google that real quick. As opposed to a simulation, a simulacrum is an image or representation of someone or something, or an unsatisfactory imitation or substitute. I don't know. Are you satisfied? Are you not entertained? Some have tried to identify ways in which we can discern if we are simulated beings. Others have attempted to calculate the chance of us being virtual entities. Yeah, let's do the math on this fantasy that we don't have any data for yet. But sure, let's again, government grants, people working at government-sponsored institutions. Sure. Now, a new analysis shows that the odds that we are living in base reality, meaning an existence that is not simulated, are pretty much even. Base reality. No, this is like, no, the Earth is not flat. It's spheroid. Because if you say it's round, well, no, even according to modern science, it's actually sort of squished around the vertical axis because the orbit of the Earth bows out the middles and the belt of it, and so it's not actually a sphere or a ball. The Earth is technically it's a spheroid. Yeah. No. Are we living in base reality? The study also demonstrates that if humans were to ever develop the ability to simulate conscious beings, the chances would overwhelmingly tilt in favor of us too being virtual denizens inside someone else's computer. So basically, if we get smart enough to create artificial intelligence in a simulation, that would suggest that that at least that would prove the possibility technologically. Now, I'm not here saying, well, because we don't have the technology, it can't be. No, of course, we're talking about aliens. In case you didn't know, yeah, we're talking about aliens having us in a little jar or a computer simulation. So if we can do it, someone else could have done it. And that presents a whole other interesting realm of possibilities brought on by that Rick and Morty episode about the teenyverse and the microverse and simulations inside simulations that could go on ad infinitum. A caveat to that conclusion that there's little agreement about what the term consciousness means, let alone how one might go about simulating it. Right now, so this is where the technology of modern times becomes frighteningly relevant. Because what does consciousness mean? And this is fun. Now this is much more immediately relevant. I mean, so you can ask if the world is, or the Earth is flat, and stimulate some fun conversations too, right? But this does, again, this really does. If you want to accept this challenge of this thought experiment, are we all just living in a simulation? You do have to ask, well, could we prove that it's possible by doing it ourselves? And this, again, this term consciousness, I'm conscious. Descartes, I think, therefore I am. Well, computers think, therefore they are too. Do they have that awareness? Does that make them conscious? Could I be? This is where you have to like turn this inside for a second. Could you be nothing more than ones and zeros in some alien supercomputer? And you go, oh yeah, I guess I could. I can't really refute that possibility. And we used to be able to with technology, because there was a period where we understood the complexity of the human brain, as in it's so many cells and neurons and axons and connections. And if you had a big enough computer, you could simulate a human brain. And if you had a computer that was a scale bigger than that, you could have 7 billion human brains simulated in that computer. But would they be conscious? And you know what? That's not really the question in this scenario. It's, can you fool them into thinking that they are conscious? In 2003, Bostrom imagined a technologically adept civilization that possesses immense computing power and needs a fraction of that power to simulate new realities with conscious beings in them. Given the scenario, a simulation argument showed that at least one proposition in the following trilemma, not dilemma, trilemma, must be true. First, humans almost always go extinct before reaching the simulation savvy stage. Second, even if humans make it to that stage, they are unlikely to be interested in simulating their own ancestral past. And third, the probability that we are living in a simulation is close to 1. What? Close to 1? As in a near certainty? I don't know. These other arguments seem pretty darn compelling. I mean, not to go on extinct part. I don't want to go extinct. Let's not do that. But unlikely to become interested in simulating their own ancestral past. Now, the thing is, once as with any technology, I mean, the one of my childhood is the NES, Nintendo Entertainment System. So expensive when it first came out, and then so cheap by the time it was in every American household with a boy between the ages of 5 and 40. But if they had simulated, essentially we have to assume that if this is true, like in this scenario, the marginal cost, we're going to read some economic analysis into this, a very simple point. The marginal cost of creating a new one would be insignificant. They just, if you were that species at that point of being able to create complex simulations. All right, CJ, if you're going to put the NES on screen, you better show me some Duck Hunt. Now, if you were this species that could create these scenarios, it would be just another one, and another, and another, and another, and another, and another. Like it'd be like an afterthought. I mean, maybe the way that humans set up aquariums today. You go to the store, you get a tank, you get your landscaping. You there you go, Duck Hunt. You get your little ceramic castle for the fish to rediscover every 10 seconds, and you get your water, and then you get your fish, and maybe it's like that. Like maybe at some point these advanced life forms are able to just go, let me create a new universe with ape-like hominids. Let's do the humans one again. Let's do another universe where humans are in a bubble in the only intelligent life. Okay, we don't need the Duck Hunt sound effects. And South Park addressed this too, and and when South Park did it, remember it was a taco pooping out ice cream scoops, who was the alien who met the boys from South Park in the form that they might find most pleasing. But the question here of why would you do this? I mean, at some point, in order to do this, I mean, I'd like to think there's a way of disproving this as a possibility, to prove that we are base reality. This is it. Flesh and blood and bone. Yes, we are real organic, homegrown humans, like they said in the Matrix. No little plug on the back of my neck. So, unlikely to be interested in simulating their own ancestral past. If you could upload your brain or plug your body into some kind of simulation that created your perfect fantasy, why would you do anything else? That's what seems like the greatest deterrent. That's not proof. These are just arguments that you go, well, yeah, I wouldn't do that. Why would I waste time? And then why create something so intricate that you're never going to enjoy, that you're never going to see? So there are a lot of questions about this. Now, there are people working this. The Scientific American article, goes back and forth, and describes all of the hypotheticals around this, and all the ways that we can see reality converging on these possibilities. But everything's kind of just conjecture at this point. So the article references a scientist named Kipping who says, despite his own study worries, Kipping worries that further work on the simulation hypothesis is on thin ice. It's arguably not testable as to whether we live in a simulation or not. If it's not falsifiable, then how can you claim it's really science? Yeah, remember that? Remember the thing about science where you have to be able to prove that something is true or not. It has to be falsifiable if if you have this truth. So it's not. This is kind of like science fiction fantasy. I mean, literally a kind of fantasy that raises a lot of fun questions that are kind of more about philosophy and life than science itself. For him, there is a more obvious answer. Occam's razor, which says that in the absence of other evidence, the simplest explanation is more likely to be correct. Now that's not helpful either, right? More likely? So instead of being 50-50, it's 99 we're 99% sure that you're real, according to science. There's a 1% chance you could just be a pile of data. We might just be able to unplug you at any moment. The simulation hypothesis is elaborate, presuming realities nested upon realities, as well as simulated entities that can never tell they are inside a simulation. As Kipping says, quote, because it is such an overly complicated, elaborate model in the first place, by Occam's razor, it really should be disfavored compared to the simple, natural explanation. Wait, there's a simple, natural explanation for how we all got here? Oh yeah, just there's a big bang, and then that blah, 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 that's everything kind of grew out of that. Yeah, still a little more complicated than that, and it really isn't. I don't know if you can. Can you just apply Occam's razor here and still acknowledge the incomprehensible to the petty human mind complexity of the universe, and suggest that a reality nested inside a reality makes it that much more complicated? Not much. I mean, we already have it in video games, in movies, and in all of our fiction in our heads. The story concludes, maybe we are living in base reality after all. The Matrix, and I would have to insert South Park, Rick and Morty, Musk, and weird quantum physics notwithstanding. And today is Thursday, October 15, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in to Adam versus the Man. All right, we got a lot of A lot of chats, but they're not in the Producers Club. But if you want to join the Producers Club, you want to be a part of the show, check it out. You can join us every day for just $10 a month. I and that could save the lives of at least 20 starving children in Africa that you could feed for 50 cents a day. But let them die. I mean, really, this is way more important. Yeah, no, I appreciate everybody who makes this conversation possible, who does see the importance. We don't normally talk about simulations and fake realities. This is Adam versus the man, after all. We are here to take down the existing power structure. If you want to be a part of the show, check it out, patreon.com/Adam versus the man. You can find it through adamversustheman.com, where you can also find our store with all sorts of awesome merchandise like this mug. Because I got to top off my tea. Freedom on one side, Adam versus the man on the other. And then there's a Garden of Freedom mug. There's a Garden of Freedom mug. This is too cool. Look, you can actually get the Garden of Freedom logo on a mug and other stuff like the beanbag chair, which we're going to need here soon. Because finally, it was August 5th. And so normally it's 2 to 3 weeks for these buildings to arrive. It has been now, we can say 10 weeks. It'll be 10 weeks tomorrow. But it's happening. The Freedom Factory studio office is going to be delivered this afternoon. I'm going to be clearing the pad, just raking it, rocks, gravel, that sort of thing. So if you want to, come help out this weekend, well, tomorrow at noon, it's going to be delivered. So right after the show, I'm going to have to jam, and I'm going to go guide the delivery driver in down our dirt roads and through the back roads that don't exist on any maps. I can't. Are there roads that don't exist on maps anymore? Not really, not with satellite photography. Underground roads? Yeah, sure, whatever. No, don't worry. The government has, global sonograms to be able to see stuff under the earth too. I'm guessing that's one of the DARPA hidden technologies. Just a guess. So if you want to join us this weekend, we're doing the build out. We're getting it's a bare building, unfinished in the interior, from premierbuildings.us. And to be fair about the delay, I don't want to hold that against them too much. I think it's just friggin' amazing that a company exists that can, in 2 to 3 weeks, pump out buildings. Like, you can custom order buildings, and they have to call them portable sheds or portable buildings, but you can emplace them and make them permanently attached to the earth if you want. Normally it's 2 to 3 weeks, and they told us in advance, thanks to COVID, it might be like 8 to 10. No, they said 6 to 8. They said 6 to 8, and then it ended up being 8.5 to completion, and then another week for delivery, assuming it gets delivered tomorrow. But this weekend we're going to be putting in the floor, the walls, the sound foam. Hopefully, if that gets here, at least our first delivery of that, we're going to have a studio that actually is lined with sound foam. Our audio quality is going to get that much better, and we're going to have a space, permanent space for the show to build out exactly the studio and functional office space that we want, along with the technical upgrades to this production with lighting and cameras and microphones and computers, and who knows, maybe I mean, if someone wants to get crazy, I kind of like the Hasan Minhaj style of if we had an unlimited budget, I would do the show standing up in my black suit, white shirt, black tie every day, with a full wall-sized computer monitor behind me, and we've got a 10-foot wide by 8-foot high backdrop for the studio in a 24-foot long building. This is really exciting. So if you want to come out this weekend, if you want to help, please send me an email. I assume if you're in there, you probably already have my number. Text me, call me. No, don't call me. I don't take calls. Text me, and then we're gonna have some fun this weekend. Jim Freedom is gonna be here, and hopefully in time for the delivery tomorrow. If not, definitely around for the weekend to help build this out, hang drywall. We have to build in an attic space. We're actually there's a loft over a little porch area. We're going to be building in a little bedroom there. So big trip to Home Depot. Very excited about this. Finally happening. And one more way you can support this show, of course, you go to cigarfederation.com. Check it out tomorrow. I guess, we're we'll take a break. Cigars and Sunsets. Geez, we might be, we might be doing it from Flagstaff. We might be doing it from here. We might be doing it from the new studio. But tomorrow, Peter Yapel joins us. That's right. Peter of Canna We Talk 420 joins us for Cigars and Sunsets at 5:30 tomorrow evening. So we're going to have a fun. And it's going to be CJ's, our intrepid producer from South Dakota, his first time ever smoking a cigar. So we're going to have some fun with that. Check it out. Let's check in. One more promo. Check out makethemdebate.com. Find my profile. Add some debates. Anybody. The first one. I'm actually kind of shocked. As well as that first one went, it wasn't super quick to put together. It took a week or two. But as amazing as that first one went, I'm kind of surprised we don't have any new ones happening. But check it out. Go to makethemdebate.com. You can just create your own debate. You can put me as a debater, as a host, and organize the sponsorship and how you want to make that happen. So please check it out. Makethemdebate.com. Seems like a lot of fun. And if you have questions, our debate coordinator, Mercedes Damertowski from Nebraska, would be happy to help you out. And I don't know what she wants to put an email. Do we have the AdamVersusTheMan.com email set up? I'm watching the Producers Club chat. If one of you want to send that and let me know while we're talking to Jim. Let's get Jim Freedom up on stage here. Check in with the audience. See what's going on out there in the rest of internet land. Good morning, Jim. How you doing? Wait, or Simulated Jim?
Simulated Jim, yeah. We were discussing that in the comments too. I think everybody likes this topic. It's such a fun topic. It's fun, but it's frustrating at the same time. It's the double F because
that's what makes it fun.
Ever prove it, but I guess that's what makes it fun. Yeah. Status said the only way a bird can fly for 11 days is if we're in a simulation. You almost made him spit out his drink there.
Yeah, that would have been a bad spit take, like right here on my laptop and my phone and my microphone. But yeah.
I replied to him. I said the bird had a cheat code.
Great callback to our story yesterday. Yeah, there's a bird. If you don't know, look it up. It's called the Godwit, as in God. Like the one who's running the simulation, and wit as in that thing that you use to say dumb things on the internet. So Godwit it's a great combination of two words for a name for a bird. And the story we covered yesterday was that it flew 7,500 miles for 11 straight days without no pit stops. Like no pit stops. Flew for 11 straight days. What from islands in Alaska to New Zealand or something. I mean, it's crazy. But yeah, that's a thing. That they put that in our. I'm glad they put that in our simulation.
That's hilarious that you just made the connection, calling God the programmer or whatever. Because that was Marcus Pulis's comment. He said, "I think this theory is a way for nerdy atheists to accept that there is a God. They just call them the programmer."
And that's one of the things that I suppose is fun about this topic is that in a secular way, it raises a lot of the religious, emotional, subconscious responses that you get around the conversation, does God exist? Because it's a comforting thought, isn't it? The more frightened you are, the more scared and uncertain of yourself you are, the more likely you are or I should say, not the more likely, but the stronger the appeal of the existence of a personified Christian God, or Jewish or Muslim, as to the major Abrahamic, what mono, what's the word? Monotheistic religions. There's a comfort to that, and every time you say, like, and for the record, I believe in my own kind of God, but it's certainly not the personified God of the Bible, right? Which I believe has been scientifically disproven in a number of ways, but we'll stay out of that for now. But I mean, to the Bible literalist, yeah, okay. No, I do have a deep appreciation for people who engage in Christianity in good faith, and it makes them better people. But there's this, like, you see the debate between atheists and Christians, and it's really fucking dumb, because the atheists reveal that they are more dogmatic than most of the Christians they're trying to debate against, who are just looking to live well and enjoy life. And if your religion is to be a dickhead to everybody about being an atheist and their belief in God, then you got your own fucked up religion, right? I've seen plenty of it. It's been a while. I think the internet was like built on this conversation. I have a few viral videos actually of debating people on the street about this. And I'll debate both ways, just to have the fun conversation. But the underlying emotions, it's like, no, you're alone. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of us, but when you get locked in a dark cage, when you get put in solitary confinement, God doesn't get to come and talk to you. You're alone. Like, that's more than most people can handle. Like, if God is talking to you, it's in your head. That's the simulation. I mean, that's what George W. was doing. But that's like a really scary possibility. So to Marcus's comment, it's like, for the atheists to be able to say there's a God, yeah, there's a programmer. What do you get out of that emotionally? Like, what is the psychological gratification of that position for an atheist to be able to say, meh, I guess I don't have any individual autonomy or control. And I think there's not only in all the ways that religion is used to manipulate people, but the way that we use it to manipulate ourselves, tends to lead to a dangerous denial of our own autonomy. That you are stardust, swirling around spirals of energy, the product of billions of years of natural development, to result in the universe becoming aware of itself. That's what you are. And it's really easy to be scared by that idea, to be scared by your own free will, your own ability to make what you want of your own life. And for people who have felt that fear, religion has been there historically to step in and manipulate them into subservience by alleviating that fear and saying, oh no, there's this God from this book who I understand better than you, and if you just do what I say, everything's going to be fine. And a lot of people go, oh, phew, I don't have to talk about that anymore.
I don't have to figure that out.
No. And this is, at the heart of my objection to organized religion, is that it tempts you to give up. I want to say it robs us, but that's not fair. It tempts us to give up our inherent humanity. And I don't know, maybe talking about all of reality as we know it being a simulation can help us face some of those deeper issues. But yeah, it's been fun. All right, Jim, we have a fuck ton And that is a scientific measurement of news to get to today. In political science, we call it a fuck ton of news. There's some financial stuff, and we've got Dan, taxationist at Berman, coming on in just 13 minutes. So let's see if we can get to some news, shall we?
Real quick,
burning
last
comments?
comment. Craig Doherty wants you to know birds aren't real.
Know your meme, everybody. All right. Our first story today from Bloomberg via yahoo.com. Tax burden equal to 70% rate crushes Americans unable to pay. And you would think from that headline, like, wow, well, we know that the tax burdens are crushing, but 70%, what are they talking about? Millions of low-income Americans are locked into poverty thanks to U.S. tax policy, Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta researchers say. Wait a second, you work for the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta? You're not allowed to say shit like that. You're either going to get fired or killed. You're ruining the racket. That's the point. About a quarter of low-income workers effectively face marginal tax rates of more than 70% when adjusted for the loss of government benefits. A study led by Atlanta Fed Research Director David Altick found that means for every $1,000 gained in income, $700 goes to the government in taxes or reduced spending. In some cases, there are no gains at all. Now, for a long time, I guess I've been relying on outdated statistics, and I try to be conservative with things like this because this is really scary. Like to face up to this and to acknowledge this. One of the myths in America is that we have a progressive tax system. And I don't mean progressive as in it makes you feel good, but progressive as in it goes up as your income goes up, right? That if you're a low income earner, your tax rate is going to be low. Not just that the amount you pay is going to be lower, but proportionally, that if you're making $40,000 a year, you're going to pay a lower percentage of that in taxes than someone who's making $1 million a year. That's the myth. And we've known. If it hasn't been painfully obvious that that's bullshit. And it's not that it's not real. Yes, on paper, that's absolutely real. I mean, on paper, yes, we have a progressive tax system. But in reality, the totality of the policy of our government in America is such that we have a regressive tax system. It actually works the opposite. I know, shocking, right? Things are the opposite of what the government is telling you when government and its sponsors are profiting from it. Yeah. The fact is that the person who's making $1 million a year on average pays less than the person making $40,000 a year because of the way they're able to manipulate the tax system in their favor. And I don't mean manipulate like in some illegal way. No. Just, I mean, this is it's set up this way. This is all legal, what I'm talking about. And there was a report from like over a decade ago, I guess, when I first became a libertarian, I studied this and I memorized this statistic that for the average working American, you're working for government more than half the years and more than 50% of your income goes to taxes. Well, guess what? We have updated numbers now. 70%. Holy shit. Like that begs the comparison to slavery. And I'm not going to be one of these sensationalist libertarians throwing the word slavery around. But here's how the question is begged, right? That if a slave owner in the days of actual direct human ownership slavery, allowed their slaves to keep 10% of the crops they were growing to feed themselves, Well, they're not slaves. They own 10% of their income. They can do what they want with it. Okay. If you don't buy that argument, why would you buy this one? Well, you're not a slave. As a poor working American, you get to keep about 30% of your income and do whatever you want with it. And I mean, the question of slavery, whether you apply the label, obviously it's more complicated than that. We do not live in a country of direct human ownership. I would never say, oh, look, you're 70% a slave. Because there are ways out of this. And I would hope that, I suppose anybody listening to this show would know that one of the biggest points and takeaways of this story is stop working for this evil system. Stop working for government. Quit your wage slave job. Figure out a way to work off the record, under the table. Figure out a way to work to feed yourself. Can you figure out a way to feed yourself where you don't give the evil people more than twice what you get to keep for yourself and your family? Can we do that? Poor families may rely on Medicaid insurance, welfare payments, food stamps, housing vouchers, and tax credits that are based on family incomes. Small increases in wages can bring big losses of benefits, reinforcing a negative cycle in which workers aren't rewarded if they improve their skills or pay. According to Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic, leading a virtual conference Thursday, it's intending to focus on this problem. I mean, it's like this is a problem for them. No, this is our system is working too well. It might collapse as they're going to figure out what it is, right? That's that. Now, I'm not saying that everybody in the system thinks that way. There might, I mean, hey, this Mr. Bostic might be the one who's having a pang of conscience right now, perhaps. He said, quote, "This is a perverse incentive that says you shouldn't try to make yourself better. They are not dumb. It's on us to actually change those incentives so that people understand what the potential is and move forward towards opportunity." Now, he's right to point out that this is a perverse incentive, that this creates the incentive to not work. And it's like, under Corona now, we have the excuse to do whatever you want. You want to print, add $9 trillion of liquidity to the market. You want to bail out your friends and let everybody else suffer. You want to stay home and be lazy. You want to use this as the excuse to take advantage of other people. Whatever it is, you can do that. But the incentive created by the kind of welfare state that we have today is such that you could stay home. I mean, just not realistic numbers necessarily, but just as an example, if you could make $1,000 a month on welfare and be given a place to live, right, and you got to pay your cell phone bill and your food, right, your clothes. Or you could work 40 hours a week, have almost no free time if you're commuting and dealing with all the other normal things that go along with that. And then you end up making $2,000 a month, but your take-home pay is 30%, essentially $600 a month. You're getting paid less to work than you would be getting paid to not work. And for the people on welfare, and I actually encourage this. As a libertarian, I've always said, get what you can out of government as long as you're not encouraging it to do more violence. So personal welfare benefits, tax breaks, food stamps, housing vouchers, all those, get it, take it. The only thing I would say is a way of what is the limit? Don't take from government. I mean, you're getting your tax dollars back. You're getting your birthright, your opportunity, everything that's been stolen from you back. I'm not saying go bribe a congressman and get a sweetheart deal, because that's, unless you have some way of, if you want to steal from the rich to give to the poor, yeah, go for it. But what you're doing there crosses a lot of lines where you're encouraging and empowering government to steal more from people. So According to the U.S. Census Bureau, 34 million Americans lived below the poverty line last year. The Atlanta Fed has developed online tools it calls dashboards that allow career centers across the U.S. to advise workers on how to increase their pay in ways that minimize, or compensate for the loss of benefits. Career advisors can enter specific details. For example, a mother with 3 kids, along with their various government programs, and suggest ways to make lasting pay gains. The bank is in serious discussions with local partners in states throughout the Southeast, as well as New York, Connecticut, blah, 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 blah. So, as President Gregory Hale of Broward University says about generational poverty, quote, "We think about the student who inevitably may make the decision, unfortunately, not to move up the economic ladder simply because of the benefits they may lose. These are the kind of challenges that perpetuate generational poverty. That is inevitably the challenge we are trying to address and the cycle we are trying to break. The Federal Reserve doesn't have all the tools to fix the problem, but it's important to highlight the issue as part of its congressional mandate to reach maximum sustainable employment," Bostic told the virtual conference Thursday. Now, this is so messed up on so many levels. I mean, aside from like the socialist aspect of this, the central planning of, where we have to create the right incentives to get the right behavior out of the population. It's like, well, why do you get to decide? Why should we trust your judgment about what is the right behavior? But there's something even deeper and perverse in this. What is their goal? 100% employment or maximum employment. That means maximum wage slavery. And I will use the word slavery in that sense. And that you are forcibly prevented in the United States from earning a living wage without having part of it stolen from you. When you work in the United States, legally on the record, you are not allowed to do so without working for government a portion of that time. It's not slavery, but it's a kind of slavery. I think wage slavery is a good way to describe it. No, and I've been saying this for years now, and I hope, because this was such a revelation for me of flipping that script. I hope it is for you. I mean, listen, really absorb this, please, for just a second. If you're not already glued to my every word, this idea of 100% employment is literally backwards. It is designed to serve the established power structure. It is designed to serve the super rich at the expense of everyone else. Again, getting to this purpose of government, to make the super rich richer and the rest of us relatively poor, and in this sense, locked into employment. And what is employment? In this sense, and then the way they define it here, it's working for the man. And if it's not directly working for the man, it's indirectly working for the man 70% of the year. The goal, if you want to be a central planner, and of course, as a libertarian, I am a benign central planner. I want to recognize that no coercive central planning should ever be used to control or manipulate society, because inevitably it will attract the corrupt and be used to rip us off. The goal should be 100% retirement, not 100% employment. With the wealth of generations, the wealth of families preserved, the ability to pass things down without them being stolen by government, a death tax or inheritance tax on paper. Wealth, economic freedom and independence for every human on earth in a way that makes work optional. That should be the goal, not 100% employment. So back to the story for some of these numbers. How do they get to 70%? While the median low-income American family may have a marginal tax rate of about 45%, there's a large dispersion of experiences depending on age, family size, location, benefits, Some families face an exaggerated problem, 70% tax rates, or occasionally much more. Just $1,000 in higher pay for a single mother in Oregon, in one example cited in Altig's research, would result in a devastating loss of $15,000 in housing subsidies. So aside from all the problems that this disincentivizes work, it doesn't apply to the black market or the gray market or anybody working under the table. You don't have this. The researchers characterize this consequence as a marginal tax rate because it leads to the government extracting more money from low-income workers through higher taxes or reduced spending on benefits. The richest 1% also face a high medium lifetime marginal tax rate of roughly 50%, but they don't face the housing, food, and medical hardships endured by the poor. The online tool suggests training strategies. In some cases, for example, a nursing student may find that the extra time to study to become a registered nurse is far more beneficial than a smaller step to be a licensed practical nurse. Some communities are putting up money to help as well. The East Lake Initiative, a community development organization in the eastern side of Birmingham, Alabama, recently began offering subsidies for food, utilities, and child care assistance to help offset the loss of benefits. As Altig said, these are crazy hurdles some people are facing. This is a significant impediment to our capacity to move people into better and higher paying jobs. That's what they want to do. They want you to be more effective wage slaves to serve the superclass. There's an obvious solution here. Stop fucking stealing from people, because taxation is theft. If you stop stealing from people, the natural economic balance can be restored. We can save, we can invest for the future. And instead of playing this game of what benefits are going to profit us the most, we actually get to create real wealth. And I think even more than that, you have to recognize it's not just that this is being stolen from us, but that it has been stolen from us for generations. And what this means, what this reveals, that for the lowest earners in America, I'm going to read this again. I want people to remember this. About a quarter of lower income workers effectively face marginal tax rates of more than 70% when adjusted for the loss of government benefits. There are cracks forming in the system, and these cracks are not just impending economic adjustments. These cracks are the awareness that is growing among the American people that not only is taxation theft, but it is having incredibly disastrous effect for all Americans. Speaking of taxation being theft, our guest today, let's get him up on stage here. So excited we got him on early. Ladies and gentlemen, joining us from that place south of here that we don't like to talk about, at least not in positive terms in a political context. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to us from Mexico, none other than Dan, Taxation is Theft, Berman. Fellow, what did we figure out? Jewish, two Jews talking about freedom, and two anti-Zionist Jewish libertarians talking about how taxation is theft. Dan joined our team of libertarian primary presidential candidates pretty early on in the cycle too. It was a pleasure to share a lot of stages with him, and to be able to talk with him today and share with all of you what he's up to and his take on. Oh man, Dan, what is the most important thing you have to share with our audience today? I'm pretty sure they all know taxation is theft already. How you doing, brother?
Oh man, I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me on. I was actually really getting into what you were talking about, because I I've been talking so much about like welfare and how everybody's getting ripped off, and here's some interesting stats for you, because we had this conversation a long time ago when I was like, yeah, if you add in all the hidden taxes and everything, everyone's paying more than 50%. And you were like, okay, where'd you get that number? And it was like loosely calculated based on some whatever information I could find. And ultimately, I was like, okay, no, I got to find a better way to do this. So what I found is the U.S. Labor Bureau statistics, right, which says Americans earn $8.5 trillion every year. And then I found another statistic, which was an aggregated amount of every government in the United States, state, local, and federal, and how much they bring in. And it was 7.5 trillion years, which works out to 88% of our pay is getting given to the government every year. Now, this is where it gets even more fucked up. Can I swear on the show? I'm sure I can.
Yeah, why
not? Where it gets even more fucked up is
hold on. I just Dan, I gotta point out. I don't know if you noticed on our screen right now.
Censored. I saw that.
We have these censored logos because we're banned on YouTube right now. So we're just broadcasting on Facebook and Periscope to Twitter. But no, it's kind of a weird world of censorship that we've entered, where you can say fuck as many times as you want, and nobody cares on the internet. That's pretty well blasé at this point. But if you say, maybe lockdowns don't work, a week before the World Health Organization says it themselves, because you're contradicting the World Health Organization, we're going to kick you off our platform. Yeah. At some point, Dan, at some point, you are not going to be allowed to say what you're about to say. But it's not because of the word fucking it, but it's because you are exposing one of the key elements of the government racket. Sorry, go ahead. I had to insert that aside to catch people up.
So the fucked up part is there's only $3.5 trillion of printed currency in circulation. So they're taking more than twice that, and of course they've printed a lot since I had that number. I think like around February, but they take more than twice the amount of money in circulation out of circulation every year. From us, and that accounts for 88%. Now, this is to your point. What you were talking about is, would you rather be on welfare and get $1,000 a month, or would you rather work 40 hours and then end up with less than 1,000? Yeah. So let's put that all in perspective. If you add in that 88% that you're being taxed, and you add in the cost of inflation through the FHA, and I could talk about that. The FHA is making the cost of living, the cost of housing, our biggest expense, 4 to 10 times bigger than it should be. And so at the end of the day, if you're working 40 hours a week, you're not ending up with less than $1,000. You're ending up with negative money. And this is why most of the country, 80%, I think it's 88% of the country is in debt. Yeah. And people talk about like, oh, well, we have the highest home ownership in this country than we have ever had. No, you don't own your homes. You're in debt. And this is what's the craziest about that. Before FHA came along, right? You would buy a house. You'd spend 50% down, and you would you'd get a 5 or 10 year loan. So your house would be paid off in 5 or 10 years. The way it works now is you get 3% down, which sounds like less. But you are in debt. You get a 30-year loan. Most Americans get that loan when they are 33 years old. That's the average. That means you're going to finally finish paying off your house, assuming you don't refinance a few times throughout your life, which a lot of people do, when you are 63, almost ready to retire. What the hell is going on? And then when you die, as you said, you have to pay taxes on that, so you can't even just give it to your kids. Like this, and this is how they have people so mind-fucked. Because I wrote out, okay, look, here are two different sets of numbers, right? Pre-FHA inflation, right? Because what FHA does is it tells banks to make extremely easy loans to a specific market, the same way that student loans work in a specific market. They dump a shit ton of money right in one market, and it inflates that market. Not the rest of the money, just that market. So the inflation rate of housing is different than the inflation rate of oil or gold or food or anything else. So if you look at just the inflation of housing itself, 50% down payment from pre-1933. Remember that year? That's when FHA was created also.
Well, I don't actually remember it, but I know what you're talking about.
1933 was the gold confiscation of the Federal Reserve. Yeah, that's right, because Federal Reserve was 1913. But so 1933 is when they came up with the FHA. Before that, your down payment would be about 50%. And people are like, oh my God, but who can afford 50% down payment? Yes, if you're looking at today's prices. But here's the thing. I broke down the numbers. I made a tweet about this, and I said, would you rather make a 50% deposit or a 50% down payment that is $5,000 and have your house paid off in 5 years? Or would you rather make a 3% down payment that is $10,000? Well, 5,000 is less than 10,000, but 50% is bigger than 3%. And there were still people commenting on that tweet. Yeah, but who can afford 50%? 3% is lower. This is how brainwashed people have become to this, and it's absolutely nuts. But this is the brainwashing that we have to undo, and these are the systems that the government has put in place. It's the appearance that things are getting easier, and they're not.
To me, and I think to anybody who is math literate, and I used to be really good at math, so I kind of take it for granted. Like I really was a math super nerd for a while. Like in high school, I went to a statewide math competition. AP. Like I was that nerd, and then I got to college and I freaking hate it. They made me take. They're like, well, you have to take at least one math class in college. I was like, no, screw this. But I do kind of take it for granted, and this basic mathematical literacy. And I want to give my dad a huge amount of credit, more than the school system that the government school system he sent me to. And if there are any parents, like I want to encourage you to do things like this with your kids. But when I remember my dad would drive me to school every day for certain times in my life, and he would quiz me and my brother, and we would do like fun math problems and games, and he would teach us about the stock market. Just having those conversations just kind of made it like a normal thing. And we're not biologically programmed for this. I mean, you step back and you go, we're a bunch of monkeys who figured this stuff out, but we're still fundamentally animals. We are not biologically designed to do math, right? But we have that capacity because it empowers us. And when you present a problem like this with your tweet, Dan, I go, yeah, you know how libertarians, we tell you all the time, they want to dumb you down. They want, like, this is the result where they don't want, like, we throw out these sort of like big vague statements. Like government schools, government education is manipulated to make you dumber or to understand less, so it's easier to manipulate you. And you just proved it with this one example where the simple math, you go, well, gee, why is housing as expensive as it is today? Why don't we all live in mansions? Because we could. Like, and the focus I want to take for this interview, if you're up for this, is how do we communicate this to the average American, how badly you are being ripped off if you are working and paying taxes, and even if you're not, how much you're suffering as a result of this. And like, the 50% thing, if I may, Dan, I think that was from Grover Norquist. But Tax Foundation for a more, so this is a more conservative number on this, from the Tax Foundation. These are the people who do Tax Freedom Day, and from last year, it was April 16 or 105 days into the year, and they say, look, you're this is how long you have to work to pay the nation's tax burden. You have to work a third of the year or something like that. And now I'm thinking, well, maybe this is propaganda. If they're trying to tell America, I mean, the theme of my show yesterday, and I'm sorry to go so long on this, Dan, but the theme of my show yesterday is that the extreme truths of reality that need to be told, they don't have to lie about them. They just have to moderate them. The fact that we live under this power structure of authority that rips us off so bad today, that's fucking extreme. And if you talk about it any other way, you are fucking lying. If you pretend that this is normal or acceptable or just not extreme in any way, that's a fucking lie. And the reality might be that we're working for government well over 50% of the year. I look at this and I go, it's enough to say we're working for government a third of the year. That's fucking obscene. But they might be trying to moderate this. So, by these traditional metrics, they say Americans will pay $3.4 trillion in federal taxes, $1.8 trillion in state and local, total bill $5.2 trillion, or 29% of the nation's income. But we're not, there's also this data to back it up. You say when you add in all the fees, fines, and hidden costs of government, the average working American is working for government more than half the year. Now you look at the story I covered just before bringing you on, marginal tax rates for poor Americans in the range of 70%. A marginal tax rate, that means you make more money, but that margin of extra income is taxed at a higher rate because your overall rate has gone up. But in this case, they're talking about your benefits going down as well. So Dan, the bigger question is, how do we communicate this to the average American who's been zombified by a shitty government education and propaganda that makes all of this extreme racket seem moderate or normal or acceptable?
Right. I think, and I want to give credit to someone who's been a wonderful role model in this area, Bernie Sanders.
Fair enough.
So,
yeah.
I mean, look, here's the thing, and I learned this from marketing and advertising, and social media, and I'm sure you've learned plenty of this too. Is that if you want somebody to, okay, you can write an amazing article, right? But no one's going to read it unless they get to the page. And in order to get them to the page, they first have to click something, right? Or maybe it's a video or whatever it is. They're not going to get to the content unless they click. So how do you make them click? And if the click says, hey, we hate government, most normal Americans are not going to click. Why would you put roads? Like, yeah, why would I click that, right? But Bernie Sanders, who, and now of course he doesn't hate government, although he claims to hate the establishment and some other things. He doesn't do that. Instead, he focuses on the clickbait. I'm going to give you free healthcare. And then of course, it turns out that's not free, but to the people who are still buying that line, it's, even they believe it's free because the story he backs that up with is free. And so I think ultimately what we need to figure out is we need to understand that people, we need to understand where people are living, what world they're living in, what their state of mind is. And we need to come to them and say, look, are you struggling with life right now? Are you struggling with credit card debt? Are you struggling paying your bills and your cost of living and taxes? Are you struggling to fill out your tax forms and your 1040s and everything else? And when you ask that question, the answer for everybody is yes. Do you want to figure out how to solve this? And then you have their attention, and then you can talk to them about solving the problem. Now that you've given something to them valuable, they will look to you as sort of an expert in this area of information. And then you can go on to say, well, look, let's dig even further into this problem. We can tell you, why things are this way, how it got this way, how you get out of it. So first you satisfy their immediate needs, which of course is, you look at this as their survival level, right? You look at Maslow's pyramid, survival is always the first thing. And this is where a lot of people are acting. When you look at a lot of people, whether they supported Trump or Bernie Sanders, it's survival. You look at the people who want free healthcare. That's about survival. Am I gonna be able to live? Am I gonna survive? What happens if I get sick? What happens if I get in a car accident and break my leg? Whatever. I'm not gonna be able to pay my hospital bills. I'm gonna die. This is survival. Now, of course, this isn't an immediate need for most of them, unless they, maybe they have cancer or diabetes or someone in their family, and they're facing all these big bills right now. But even for other people, the politicians are putting this imaginary future scenario. You're going to get sick, and you're not going to be able to afford it. So they're in survival mode, even though there's no immediate threat to their survival. Now you look at the Trumpsters; it's the exact same thing. The Mexicans are going to come and take your jobs.
Yeah.
China's going to come and take your jobs. All these things. Whatever Trump talks about, he's invoking the emotion of fear, making people at that survival level say we have to elect Trump or else things are going to. And what's going on with the protests and the riots and everything else? Oh my God! If we don't get Trump another 4 years, BLM is going to burn down the entire country. It's all fear and propaganda. And so, what we have to do first is either help people to address those fears by saying, okay, look, let's you've got some problems in your life. Let's talk about addressing those. Credit card debt, throw those out. If you don't pay your credit cards, nothing bad is going to happen to you. I've been through that myself. So but like we start addressing some of these issues, and once people start paying attention to these things, or we offer them alternatives. So in the case of healthcare, what I usually do when I talk to Bernie supporters is I say things like, okay, look, you're ultimately going to be paying taxes for this healthcare, right? What if the cost of the healthcare that you want is less than the cost of these taxes that Bernie Sanders is going to give you? Then they're usually like, okay, I'm listening. And then you go through and you explain, okay, well, this is how it works. The cost of insulin is about 10 times more than it should be. And then you walk them through how that is. It's a company manufactures it in the U.S., they export it to Mexico, they sell it for $12. Meanwhile, they're selling it for $100 in the U.S., and it's illegal to go to Mexico and buy it for $12. I mean, you could buy it for yourself, but you can't bring in a big case of it. So if you're not able to go to Mexico, this isn't an option for you. You go to Mexico, you buy it for $12 and bring it back to the U.S. in large quantities, you go to prison. Why? What are they trying to protect you from? Is it the quality of the insulin? No, because that same insulin was manufactured in the United States.
Okay, Dan, I kind of want to stop because I feel like you're getting into the libertarian wonky, or I mean, a lot of people have already lost you. Like it's too much. I mean, yes, you can talk if someone is willing to engage with you on that practical level. Yeah, we got all the answers. But there was something you said about actually you did not say about Bernie Sanders that surprised me, where I thought you were going to go with this, that where libertarians do have a chance to compete at a deeper level. Because what Bernie Sanders does effectively, I mean, Democrats have always been good at offering free shit. Did Bernie Sanders somehow take it to a new level? I mean, maybe better messaging, maybe better timing, maybe a better coherent message overall, and that's why he was able to fill stadiums. But what you didn't say about him that I think he does even more effectively is appeal to people's basic sense of fairness. And you go, look, he talks about millionaires and billionaires. Why? I'm not going to try to do a Bernie Sanders impersonation.
Okay.
But it's the billionaires and millionaires who are benefiting, and the rest. Like that's I think what clicks with people. And then it's, oh yeah, of course we're going to get to do all that other stuff, better without subsidizing the super class. And this was the strategy of my campaign and of localization. But specifically, the first step of dissolving the federal government, it's like, look how much has been stolen from us. Let's take it back. And then I at that point, I can, connect it to any issue. But I'm not saying, and government's going to do this better, or government's going to do that better, or it's taxes versus the cost of healthcare. It's just, how there's some people, I think there might be a better way to convince people when you say, well, 1% of the population controls what is it? 50% of the wealth. I mean, it's more than that, isn't it, for the top 1%? Depending on how you measure it. well, let's take it back and we can all be rich, and then all these problems go away.
Right. The problem with that is you're kind of creating like, so you called it basic sense of fairness. I don't think that's really true, because in two people's minds, what is fair is completely different. And when Bernie Sanders is saying, well, those people have so much, it would be absolutely fair of us to steal from them, these people have now justified stealing. And so I don't necessarily want to say we need to take it back, because yes, there are a lot of billionaires out there who made their money through completely illegitimate means. But there are also people out there who made a lot of money through completely legitimate means. And we don't want to kind of continue that that type of thinking where we say, oh, all wealthy people don't deserve what they have. Instead, we want the opposite. We want every individual American to understand, no, you should have that too. This is where you're getting robbed. You're being robbed by the government. And if you weren't being robbed by the government, you would own your own home. You would be able to pass things down to your children. You wouldn't have debt. You wouldn't be working so hard. You'd be retiring at 20 or 30 instead of working until you're 65 or 70. And you give people that, and that's something where they can say, yeah, I want that. I want that for myself. And you say, well, you don't have to rob any rich people. You just have to get the government to stop stealing from you for them.
I'm definitely with you, but so, philosophically here, I think what you're trying to say, or one of the things you were implying there, is that if you say this has been stolen, let's take it back, you're just indulging socialist statist theft. Whereas in order to avoid that, now you have a bigger challenge. You have to explain how it's been stolen, and monetary policy and corporatism, and all of these other things. I think we could still sidestep that rhetorically with the bigger point of the US dollar is a currency designed to steal from you. And you raised the challenge.
How it works.
Yeah,
because ultimately, like you made a really great point before about how people are being dumbed down. And yes, we could try to dumb down the message and say, like, no, we're being robbed here, and that's all there is to it. But is that really what we want? Or do we want people to be smarter and understand? Because each person is kind of living in a different scenario. They're all being attacked in different ways. And that's why you see, the division between the left and the right. They're both on that survival level, except one of them is afraid that their job is going to be taken away, and the other one is afraid that their health is going to be taken away. And so they're still afraid of something, but their number one priority is something completely different. And there are people who come up to me all the time. I don't care your position on anything. I just want to know if you're pro-life or pro-choice. That's all they care about. And it's like, okay, fine. You need to talk to all of these different people on all of those different issues, because if you're not, if you try to come up with some one-size-fits-all solution, then ultimately what you're doing is you're attempting to dumb them down. If you're trying to offer them a solution without understanding the actual problem that faces them, then you're trying to dumb them down. Now, that doesn't mean you can't dumb down the message, because, like I said, you do need a good hook. You do need to get them where they are, and you do need to understand that you do need them to understand that you are trying to help them, that you have a solution for their problem, and that comes by not necessarily dumbing down, but oversimplifying a message just to get their attention, because you've only got 2 seconds and 5 words to do that. But once you have their attention,
Dan, I want to object to something that you said there, because I don't think it's dumbing. To create a simpler message is not necessarily dumbing people down, and it's definitely not in this case. And I, if I may just kind of sidebar, bigger point here, if the point of libertarianism is to minimize the role of government in your life, well, if you spend too much time thinking about this shit, studying the knife in your back instead of pulling it out, you're being misdirected in a way that makes it easier to take advantage of you. So part of it is I want to make it easy for people. It's sort of like, to come up with an analogy for you and I as political fixers, right? Not we look at political problems, we want to fix them as activists. The problem is not that you, the average American, don't understand how you're being ripped off. The problem is that you are going along with it. I want to make it as easy as possible for you to do the right thing and to understand it as directly and compellingly as possible so that you retain that and then you act on that and encourage. And part of that is if you want, you can go like study monetary policy. You can, but like, I don't do this now. I mean, look, what do? I study how to build shit and on my homestead and how to grow my own food and run my little solar power system. But even there, like when someone sells me a solar power system for my off-grid home, I just need to understand how it works and what it means for me. I don't need to understand, the intricacies of the electronics if I'm never going to open it up and repair that part anyway. And so I think with this challenge of connecting with the American people, one of the problems that you raise, and I'll bring it back for a second. One of the problems that you raise is how do you sort out people who have gained their wealth legitimately from those who have not, right? And in a way, that's an impossible knot to untangle, but or a one that's not worth it, right? It would cost more than it's worth to untangle in any kind of detail. So again, my sort of blanket, make it easy to understand solution is crash the dollar system. Let's have free market money. Let's get fucking Fight Club on this shit and erase the debt record. If hopefully we don't have to beat each other up in basements and then blow up bank buildings, but we can use Bitcoin. We can use whatever crypto or gold and silver and say, we're not going to be stolen from anymore. And we can, I think giving people the opportunity to say, we will take back what has been stolen from us does not reinforce the socialist idea of taking because it's a tax or taking from someone because you are rich. I would like to think that the average American can engage in that. But what do I want? I want them to be as pissed off as I am. I want to. How do you even show people in this? Like it's this. We want to show people how badly they are being ripped off in the simplest way possible. So for me, it has traditionally been, well, the average working American is working for the government 50% of the year, blah blah blah. That doesn't cut it. Like that doesn't make people angry enough. I mean, it should.
Well, here's an interesting point. If okay, what happens when you're those bridges that are like built over these like giant canyons, and it's like a rope bridge with some like wood at the bottom that's all falling apart and rotted out.
Right.
Like, okay, when you walk across, what's the first thing they say? Don't look down, right? When you're to some degree, when you focus on the problem, you're telling people to look down, and that scares people. And people have an aversion to looking at what scares them. So to a lot of people, they would like to look away and imagine that a problem that is facing them does not exist, especially when they have some politician that's up in front of them saying, yeah, don't worry about that problem. I'm going to solve that for you. Now, that doesn't make that the right way to solve these problems or the right way to deal with our issues and how we're being robbed. But at the same time, this goes back to it's a survival mechanism, right? People are in this state of mind of survival. Why are so many people uninterested in politics? Either they think it's got nothing to do with them, or it's just too scary for them to think about, and they don't know the solution, and so they'd rather just not think about it, right? They'd rather not look down. So I think there's a lot of validity to what you're saying, but this also has to do with kind of what I said earlier, that everybody is in a different position. Everybody is in a different state of mind, and we can't treat everybody as the collective, even though we're all human beings. We're not all thinking the same. And so every individual almost needs to be addressed differently based on, where they are in life and what their problems are. If there are people in debt with credit cards, and I've done this before because I've been down that road. There are ways you can just write off your credit card debt and make it disappear. and you don't go to jail for it. They don't come and take your house away. They might try to put a lien on it or something. But they're not as big and scary as they seem. And I know they are big and scary. I mean, when I first started learning about this stuff, there was even a documentary about credit card debt where it said like people were committing suicide because they were getting phone calls from debt collectors that, yeah, well, you have to give us this money or else, blah, blah, blah. And people felt threatened. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm going to sell my children so I have money to pay off this credit card. Like that's how insane this gets.
Yeah.
But it actually turns out that there was, and to Congress's credit, they actually passed one law that is in our favor, that limits how debt collectors can harass you. And I even sued AT&T was after me for $30. And after I learned about this law and got rid of a lot of credit cards by just not paying them, I know there's a lot of libertarian morality on, but you signed the contract and all this other stuff. Okay, fine. But AT&T was after me for $30, which I didn't owe them because they never even got the service working. They gave my bill to collections. They were harassing me. I sued them and I got $6,000 from them.
Wow.
Because of this law and how it's written. And it's absolutely insane, but it's there. And the point of this is, if we start addressing, if 88% of America is in, or if 80% of America is in credit card debt, and we can tell them, hey, don't be afraid of that debt, stop running it up, but stop playing into this game. We can eliminate that debt for people, which I don't know if that's going to crash the currency, but it is going to get people out of this debt mentality. But we also have to consider that, okay, that's not the entire problem. Because the reason they're in debt in the first place, it's not just because they shop too much, it's because their cost of living is too high. So when they get their paycheck, not only do they have to pay for their rent and their food and all their other necessities, now they've got, as you were talking about how taxes disproportionately affect poor people, they have, I got to drive to work, which means I need to pay my vehicle registration, which if that's $100 and you're making $1,000 a month, that's 10%. That's an additional 10% for that 1 year of your income. Whereas if you're a billionaire and, even if your car's an expensive car and you got to pay $500 a year on it, that's peanuts. That's 0.001%.
Yeah.
So this is like, okay, well, I got to pay this. I got to pay this fee, and then twice a year, right? Because the other big one you get hit with is your driver's license renewal, twice a year, another 10% of 1 month. Do I feed my kids this month, or do I pay this? Now imagine if you could tell people, yeah, you know what, you should stop paying your vehicle registration and you should stop paying your driver's license registration, like I did. I haven't paid those in like 10 or 15 years now. Not only that, I've saved a shit ton of money on not having to pay speeding tickets that I've gotten. Yep. Because they can't extort me with my driver's license, which I don't have. Oh, if you don't pay this, we're going to suspend your license. That doesn't happen anymore. Mm-hmm. You save a lot of money in this way, and that gives you more opportunities. That allows you to start saving your money. If more people can start earning their money under the table, so they're not paying taxes on it, which a lot of people on welfare are doing. Yep. They've got their little side hustles. That's where they get some additional money. Expand on that. Do more money make more money in the black market. Stop paying taxes. We will all start to accumulate more money and more wealth, and we'll stop being tricked into the system. But of course, you still have death taxes and inheritance taxes, and there's all kinds of bullshit ways that the government's going to try to take our houses and have us continue to work. But if we can offer solutions that people are like, yeah, that would be great. Wouldn't that be great if you didn't have to pay your driver's license every year? Wouldn't it be great if you didn't have to pay these stupid traffic tickets because you didn't use your blinker? Wouldn't it be great if you didn't have to pay your vehicle registration every year? All these other things. Wouldn't it be great? There's a thing in Texas, you can get a tax exemption certificate. You just show it wherever you shop, and and they'll just remove the sales tax. And it's not like issued by the state. It's a form, and you fill it out yourself, and you basically say that. Yeah. So
that's the agricultural exemption in Texas, right?
No, this is it can be used for different reasons. It's one of the reasons is for like resale, right? If you buy something that you're going to resell, you're not supposed to pay tax because you're supposed to charge tax. But the way the sales tax works in Texas is you're not supposed to pay the sales tax at the register. You're supposed to give it to the purchaser is supposed to go to the comptroller and pay him directly, which is bullshit and nobody does it. But this is why it's so important to get educated, because if you don't know these things, when the government comes to your door and says, yeah, you're supposed to have a business license, you could say, no, I don't, fuck off. But they're going to stand there and they're going to say, like, no, you have to, and this is the why, and they'll show you all these regulations and everything. But the truth is, those regulations don't apply to you, because if you're not a certain class of business, those regulations don't apply. But they won't tell you that. They don't even know that most of the times. They're not lawyers, right? They're just trained like, okay, yeah, just make sure every business has a business license. How hard is that, right? But that's not what the law is. But there's a federal law that says, a tax. Any person can be exempt from a tax if the calculation of that tax is dependent on the number of securities, U.S. federal securities, that are used to calculate that tax. Well, what is a sales tax? It's calculated if you buy something for $10 and your tax is 10% of those $10. It's calculated based on the number of Federal Reserve notes, federal securities, right? So you're exempt from this tax, and there's all this like crazy stuff around. I know people in Texas and other states who have refused to pay their property tax because property tax does not legally apply to most people. It's collected illegally. And if you educate people to that, they can stop paying it.
So Dan, there's so many things that you've touched on there that are really beautiful, practical things that people can do. And I hesitate to say, yeah, I'm doing that. Yeah, I'm doing that, because, you know, I don't want to admit liability on the air. I'm going to plead the fifth. But no, I will say that at least to the extent of what is legal, I do everything I possibly can to minimize my contribution to the state. And Dan, there was something that you said in all of that I think really needs to be highlighted. You said they want to keep you working, paying taxes, and not owning shit, right? They want to say, we own the houses because we're the banks. We control the banks. We can, you have a note. We give you this illusion of ownership. You have a job and you can make money, but really we're going to engineer the system so that you're just encouraged enough to work. And that story that I covered earlier today with the quote from the Atlanta Federal Reserve guy, and I mean, one of the schmuckety schmucks, I forget his exact title, with the Atlanta Federal Reserve, saying that this welfare is getting carried away to the point where we're disincentivizing work, and our goal is 100% employment. Just remember, that's the point, is they want to keep you working for them, as opposed to living and loving and enjoying life and working for yourself. And I think if there's a way that if you can internalize that, if we could, and I think that's kind of the goal that I'm talking about here, Dan, is, and you're absolutely right to say, Adam, there's no silver bullet. Drop your libertarian messaging fantasy. There's no hashtag campaign that's going to wake everybody up next week. But if we can share that with people, that to us is a spiritual thing, really. That you have a choice in everything you do in your life to go along with what they want you to do to keep you on the fucking spinning hamster wheel and to stay exploited versus step away. And I think inevitably, with enough people stepping away, we're going to be able to liberate the people who don't join us in the first conscientious wave of objectors who want to opt out of this system. Now, Dan, we have a couple comments from our Producers Club chat. We're not going to go to our public comments, but our Producers Club has a few interesting things they want to say about this. First, Craig wants to know, are you going to be doing another Tit Fest in the future?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've talked about it. We're still trying to decide, do we want to do this in person next year? That was kind of the original plan. We want it to be an in-person thing, or do we want to do another virtual one? We're still trying to decide that, because what's interesting about this is being virtual, we get a lot more people to attend. Not just the attendees, but as far as speakers. It's a lot more convenient to get speakers here, especially if we can get people. We had somebody from Hong Kong at the last one. He's probably not going to be able to make it out here for an in-person. So yeah, we're still working on the details of that, but we're definitely going to do it again.
Well, if you want to do something in a country that doesn't have any fiat currency, you're welcome to use our land here in Gardenia to host whatever you like. And I do want to point out as a little personal plug here, based on all of the brilliant things that Dan said about taxation and regulations and sidestepping them for legal public purposes today. I'm going to say sidestepping the law, not breaking it, because we wouldn't dare violate the actual law in any way.
It doesn't.
But you know, and it's true. It's actually, and yes, I'm going to break the law and smoke pot outside of my home at some point later today. But no, what we are talking about, the majority of it is legal. It's really a manipulation of the or a better. I shouldn't say you're not manipulating. You're navigating the law and the regulations and the taxes and all the ways that they want to rip you off in a way that's better for yourself. Now, Mercedes wanted to point out about the debt, because I think when you talk about credit cards, oh yeah, you can just run up credit cards and then walk away from them. One, it's not as simple as that, and you did say still, you shouldn't be living beyond your means or running up debt. But Mercedes wanted to point out that medical debt is not covered in that, and that you have to file for bankruptcy with medical debt. As she says, I'm not very nice to debt collectors. But Dan, is there a way? I mean, if you have any comment on that, of course, please let me know. But is there a way? Because this is the other libertarian fantasy. If this is all bullshit, if I can just rip the system off, if they have stolen so much from me, if I can look back over my life and say, fuck, I've paid millions. Literally, when you add it up, I've literally paid millions. Even little old me, I've paid millions of dollars in taxes over my life. I'm 38 years old. I've been, working for 20 years one way or another. Why not take it back? Is there a way that you can just borrow money and walk away from it and say, screw you? And now, of course, you mentioned libertarian ethical considerations. You signed a contract. Well, it doesn't apply in this case. I wouldn't say that in anything we're talking about, we're crossing ethical lines, because you're talking about defrauding fraudsters who have benefited from committing a fraud against you.
Right, and okay. First, let me say this to Mercedes' point. So medical debt, yes, and student debt is even worse because you file bankruptcy and that's still there, and you die, and now your kids have to pay it. But just do what the billionaires do: start a trust. They can't take anything that you don't have, and if you have a trust, that's a separate legal entity. They can't take anything from that. So there are ways to protect your assets, and it's not tremendously expensive. But just learn from the billionaires. Do the same shit that they do.
So it's not that you can walk away from every debt, but that you can protect your assets and yourself from most debts.
Right, and then as far as other debts, I mean, most debts there's like a collection term, like 4 years before they sue you. If they sue you, you can. A friend of mine, he owed like $4,000 on a credit card. They sent him a letter, or they filed a lawsuit in court, and they sent him the service, which basically it was a full complaint. I looked at it and I wrote a simple response to the complaint, gave it to him, told him to go file it. No, I was not practicing law. I was giving just friendly advice to my friend, not legal advice. And he took that, he filed it, and all that said was, okay, if you think I owe you money, prove it. Show me the contract, show me the ledger, show me every single charge that I had, and show me, most importantly, the first thing, show me the contract. He submitted that to the court, and the bank went away because they don't have the contract. They don't keep these contracts. They don't care about the paperwork. In fact, like now it's so easy. You go online, you type it in, signing up for credit card, and now you have a credit card in the mail. Where's the contract? And yes, technically you could argue, okay, yeah, but you had, like, even a verbal contract is still a contract if you don't deny that you had it. But I mean, these are banks talking about money. Why wouldn't a bank actually get a signed piece of paper? Because they don't care. They have all this money and they just want to throw it out as fast as they can. Oh, we don't want to deal with And he's too lazy to show up and go, let's just get his thing from the internet. We'll send him cards. We'll send him money in the mail. We'll send him all these like predatory, like sign up now, free credit, 0% for 6 months. And then it's like 90% interest. It's completely predatory. So yeah, screw them. At the same time, and this is what's interesting about what they consider credit card fraud. It's only fraud if you take a credit card and you spend the money with no intent of ever paying it back. But if you already have the debt and you say, hey, you know what? I can't pay it. Let me call them up and say, hey, guys, I don't have any money. I can't pay it. Sorry. That's totally different. That does not fall within fraud within that law. And of course, that's when they have their statute of limitations, just a few years to sue you. And you know, but as a lot of lawyers will say, you can't squeeze juice from a stone. You know, that's what it is. And a lot of these times, usually what they do is they don't sue. They sell it to somebody else for half the price. Then they sell it to somebody else. They sell it to somebody else. And a lot of times when they come collecting, hey, you owe us $10,000. Well, I'll give you $150. They'll take it. And they'll make the whole thing go away. Because they bought it for like $100 and they're like, hey, I'm making $50 on this one.
See, I think if I were to take advantage of any of this, I'd have to go through that process and fix my credit first. But maybe you can help me with that. Maybe you can find a way for me to fix my credit for pennies on the dollar.
I can give it a shot.
What I owe on paper, and then I can take out a bunch of credit cards and completely intend to pay them back when the dollar crashes to zero, so or next to it. Dan, a couple other comments here. Nicholas wanted to point out, hey guys, this is the most important election of our lifetime. Yeah,
next election will be even more important.
Dan's the kind of guy who's like, yeah, I get it. I get it. That's just a joke, right? Okay. And then CJ, our producer, wanted to point out Epstein didn't kill himself. And Nick also wanted to point out the Soviet Union also had 100% employment. So Dan, it's been a lot of fun talking to you as always. Great insight and just, really thinking about this financial manipulation from a personal level so that we can connect it to the society level so that we can motivate others to see what we see, to take the time to appreciate these truths, to look down from the rickety bridge and say, yeah, that's maybe I shouldn't be walking here in the first place. I want to throw one more thing out. Since you brought this up, you know who else had 100% employment? American slaves. Oh, you don't have anything to do? Find something to do and get to work. Yep. Dan, your perspective is always appreciated here. Anything else you want to share before we go, or plugs you want to make? Yeah, let me make this plug. If you go to taxationstuff.info and click on the top, we're giving away this amazing Opener 3000. And if you look at it, it's like a beautiful piece of metal equipment that says Taxation Theft on the side of it. It's just an opener. It opens things. There's an awesome video that shows you kind of all the things that you can open with it. It is not an AR-15, even though it looks like it. The government heavily regulates the shapes of metal objects. And with the right know-how and parts and accessories, maybe turn it into an assault opener or something. But it's just an opener. It opens bottles and cans and all kinds of stuff. I love it. It's free. We're giving it away for free. Just go there and sign up. All right, I'm on it. I've got it pulled up right now. Dan, as always, thanks for your time. It's been a lot of fun. Appreciate you joining us today. Thanks for having me on. This is awesome. All right, peace and love, brother. All right, so we got 15 minutes. Let's see how many. See, sometimes we don't have time for comments. You got to be in the Producers Club if you want to be part of the show. AnnaVersusTheMan.com. Check it out. All right, so CJ, we're going backwards on the pile of links today because I still have that. Tomorrow we'll talk about COVID. It's been nice to kind of avoid. I've been successfully avoiding COVID by not wearing a mask. But no, our friend Charles Arison, great activist from Albuquerque, who might be visiting us here at the Garden of Freedom. By the way, I meant to give myself more of a plug during Dan's interview. If you are inspired by that, and you want to talk to me off the record, and you want to explore business possibilities for yourself, if you want to help with what we're doing here in Gardenia, or just learn from it and come and hang out, remember, I just want to remind people that one of the things that we offer people is a basic work, trade, rent situation. If you work, if you give me 2 days of labor per week, you can live here for free, or that's how you earn your rent. And even, compared to what some people pay for camping, that's a very reasonable deal. So, please, if you have thoughts, ideas, you want to come out and visit, email me. If you're in the Producers Club, you can pull out the list. You can see everybody who's in the club, and that phone number that's with my name, that's my cell phone number. You can Telegram text me, or just regular text me. But let's do business. I want to empower everyone who sees this, not just as an opportunity for themselves, but a moral imperative to not contribute to the evils of the system, and as an activism imperative to show other people how you can live better. Please, join us in this. What we're doing here physically in Gardenia is so critically important to that. So our friend Charles Arison in Albuquerque wanted us to share the story from the Northern New Mexico Independent. I get them confused, but if you need to tell them apart, remember, New Mexico, it's cleaner than the old Mexico where Dan was calling from. Man died in jail after municipal judge denied release. A Chamayo man was arrested on orders from Espanola Municipal Court Judge Stephen Salazar on Friday, October 2. Spoke to his mother for the last time just hours before he died. Juan, who was known to many as Juanito, called his mother from the Rio Arriba County Detention Center in Tierra Amarilla and told her police arrested him for 2 outstanding bench warrants issued by Judge Salazar for allegedly failing to appear for court hearings. And this is, he had $500 bond. Mom couldn't afford it. Bail reform laws ignored here. The municipal judge is silent on it. This is the corruption in New Mexico is uniquely vicious. So, I want to share this story partly because my friend Charles asked us to, but I wouldn't if it was a meaningless story. And this is just, we're not fucking around here. Your life is at stake. When we talk about how to best navigate government, how to deal with this monstrosity that tends to dominate that dominates Americans' lives. How do we address it? And a lot of times in the past, I've been I don't want to say flippant, but very, for me, for being, looking like a white male, for being a combat veteran, for being physically fit, not dependent on any particular medication for my well-being, capable of articulating my positions and asserting myself in a legal situation. And with the I feel like I've been taking, D-list celebrity privilege for granted, right? That just being, visible. And by the way, side update here on our friend Mike Nelson in North Carolina. As far as I know, he is still in custody. He was transferred to a federal facility. And Blind Justice, I've been in contact with his wife, Christina Nelson. Scary situation, and he goes out, he's an activist. You think, he has the same sort of high profile protection from this kind of abuse. And I hope that is shielding him to some degree while he's locked up in custody. But we don't live in the Soviet Union where people just get, disappeared, and it might be, by mistake, and anybody can die at any time. It's certainly, a much smaller scale threat, but it is a very real threat. And, at some point, I mean, here it is. Margie, this Juanito's mother, said she did not yet hear back from the medical investigator's office about the cause of her son's death. She is worried, though. She's worried that the staff at Rio Arriba County Detention Center failed her son in some way. Oh, yes, they most certainly did. To Thailand from AFP via yahoo.com, thousands defy Thai crackdown after emergency decree and arrests. Yes, it looks like the monarchy in Thailand is coming to an awkward end. Thousands of Thai protesters gathered Thursday in defiance of a sweeping crackdown after authorities moved to crush months of pro-democracy demonstrations by imposing emergency powers and rounding up leading activists. Protesters chanted, "Prayut, get out and free our friends," as they confronted police at Ratchaprasong. I'm just covering the story because I wanted to say Ratchaprasong, a busy intersection in central Bangkok, despite you thought it was about Bangkok, didn't you? Despite a new decree that bans gatherings of more than 4 people aimed at quelling student-led demonstrations, the government of Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha, a former army chief who initially took power in the 2014 coup, has been the target of the protesters, but they have also taken aim at Thailand's unassailable monarchy. As one of the few prominent activist leaders not in custody, Panupong Mike Jadnok told his crowd Thursday, "You push us into the corner like a dog, and with our backs against the wall, we'll bite back with nothing to lose." Yeah. As a privileged American citizen of the empire, I can't really relate to that. Not at this level. I mean, I know what it's like to have my back up against the wall. I know what it's like to fight like you've got nothing to lose. But they're never going to let us get to this point in the United States. We are a much more carefully managed population. As night fell, protesters waved their lit-up mobile phones in the air. Thousands sat on plastic sheets on the road, snacking on street food, while scores more watched from overhead walkways. Many said they would return Friday evening. 2 water cannon trucks retreated near the rally, and students chased a police van away from the crowd. After the emergency measures were announced on early Thursday, riot police dispersed hundreds of protesters who camped overnight outside the Prime Minister's office. Later, students took to social media to urge supporters to take to the streets. Now, little background texture on Thailand you're going to get from this next sentence that needs to be just, hold on. Among those who turned out were high school students who covered the ID tags on their uniforms with duct tape. Stop and think about that for a second. We don't have that in the United States. Yes, there are private schools that have uniforms. We're talking about government school students here in Thailand. This is the system of forced education that they live with, where they have ID tags on their uniforms. And in order to protect their identity going out and protesting, as is their right, they cover them up with duct tape. So Catherine, a 13-year-old attending her first protest, said, "I want democracy for my country. I want to be part of big change." Well, again, congratulations to the people of Thailand. We've been covering the story for a while, and we will follow it to its hopefully triumphant conclusion. But as far as I can tell from right now, it looks like they're on track for a revolution in Thailand. The sooner the better. Quick, let's see, skim through some headlines in our last few minutes here. From Deadline.com, top actors and showrunners ask NBC to move Donald Trump town hall from slot opposite ABC's Joe Biden special. Yeah, we want to be able to watch both flavors of propaganda. More than 100 writers, actors, directors, and producers are speaking out against NBC's plan to air a town hall with President Donald Trump tonight at 8 p.m. directly opposite Joe Biden town hall, the Joe Biden town hall on ABC. See, if I had watched, like, I occasionally I think back and I go, I see the debate between Trump and Biden. I'll probably watch it as part of my debate prep in 2024 in the Libertarian primary as a sort of thought exercise. When I can say, okay, I'm gonna watch it for this purpose. I'm gonna try to learn this and get this takeaway and cool. But if I had watched it, now I'd be sucked into this. Get sucked into this Trump Biden reality show, and even in doing so, giving Joe Jorgensen and the Libertarian Party and candidates, less space in my brain, less credibility, less airtime with Adam versus the man than they deserve. So keeping up from a distance here. Now, some international COVID headlines. Bloomberg has this: London and Paris clamp down as Europe hits virus records. Londoners will be banned from mixing with other households indoors, and Paris is set for a curfew as European leaders struggle to cope with record new coronavirus cases around the region. That's like saying when your teacher let you off school early, you struggle to figure out what to do with your free afternoon. No, we've talked about, like, what we do with Adam versus the man is taking in this wave, this massive amount of mainstream media and chewing it up for you like a mama bird, pre-digesting in order to spit it into your little bird mouths. But there's sometimes when it's like, I don't want to chew up this shit. Prime Minister Boris Johnson's government mandated tighter restrictions in the UK capital starting this weekend, while French President Emmanuel Macron will confine residents of 9 of the country's biggest cities to their homes between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. for 4 weeks from Saturday. German Chancellor Angela Merkel implored citizens to abide by distancing rules and avoid groups. And I think part of this is them struggling to fulfill their busybody potential. When so many people are staying home and not getting out, and therefore there's less traffic less cars on the road to pull people over for, they need it's a kind of make work program for government. And remember, they're turning to lockdowns. I mean, just the irony of this. Adam versus the man, we get censored for questioning the effectiveness of World Health Organization guidelines and recommendations for masks and lockdowns and distancing. Even when we're just a week ahead of them changing their policy. But governments around the world, it's not like the tech giants imposing these policies. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about the truth. They just want to help governments silence dissent, especially right now among this surge of statism that, I don't know, man, maybe looking at more of the headlines, I'm getting more optimistic that why are they cracking down? Why is the censorship so obscene? And by the way, I haven't plugged my book in a while, so I'm gonna take this opportunity to do it now. Freedom. This is the key. You want to understand everything. 100 pages. You want the code to the matrix. It's right in here. And maybe we'll get. I don't know. Maybe we're running into the end of the show. I think in the book, it's in the section about about police states. But it let's see, can I here, the police state on page 31. There's a here it is. I'm going to read this. CJ got it before I did. Page 31 from Freedom. Please, if you would, please turn to your freedoms to page 31, chapter 2, chapter 4, section 3, personal security. It's the chapter. Section 3, the police state. Page 31, verse 1. Modern governments have entered a self-destruct cycle. Policies are enacted on behalf of special interests. Governments convince enough of us that the policies are well-intended. We figure out that a particular policy is intended to take advantage of us. We get upset and resist. Rather than giving in to the pressure, politicians and their sponsors find it more profitable to minimize the impact of the resistance while they create a new policy to distract us. This creates a seemingly endless cycle of creation and suppression of discontent. Old discontent piles up as politicians, special interests, and other criminals respond to very short-term incentives because they are removed from accountability for long-term consequences. As tension grows, governments must increase direct control over their citizens. Effective governments have carefully cultivated enforcement classes full of police who will not question orders. A government of runaway enforcement or a police state is a predictable result of corruption. Now, the police state is just one element of this, but the self-destruct cycle, that was what I was thinking. That's why I'm starting to feel. It's not feeling, because I don't go based on emotions when it comes to politics and political conclusions and understanding the world better from a rational perspective. But this feeling I'm getting should be better described as an inkling. I'm starting to put some pieces together. And I'm getting more hopeful as a result that we are in that death spiral of government all over the world. Now we're over time. I'm going to skim through a few headlines. We're going to check in with our comments and call it a day. Business Insider, the World Trade Organization, has ruled that the EU can impose around $4 billion in tariffs on U.S. goods in retaliation for Boeing subsidies. Yeah. Because the U.S. government gives such huge subsidies to aircraft maker Boeing that tariffs can be imposed. We're going to take that back. So in October last year, the World Trade Organization ruled the U.S. can impose tariffs on $7.5 billion of EU goods over its state aid to Airbus. So tit for tat, big manipulation, interesting fight to follow. From Yahoo News, Yahoo.com, militias targeting Michigan and Virginia governors show rise of boogaloo violence. I don't even want to read the story. Just going to point it out to you as another attempt at propaganda demonizing the boogaloo movement. It's like if libertarians do something fun and meaningful and come up with a new brand for it, and we're calling it the boogaloo, well, got to demonize that too. Remember when I made my prediction about meth, crystal meth, methamphetamines getting around being part of the protests, and that there's a deliberate attempt to allow it to circulate the same way as was the case with crack cocaine in the 80s in LA? Well, got another little data point backing me up on this theory from CNN.com. DEA announces biggest domestic seizure of meth in agency history. Yeah. DEA agents seized more than 2,200 pounds of methamphetamine earlier this month, the largest haul in the agency's history domestically, according to officials. According to Timothy Shea, the DEA's acting administrator, who said at a press conference Wednesday, quote, "That's a significant amount of meth. Even all of our agents together, I mean, we worked hard all weekend. We could not smoke all of this no matter how much we tried." See if you can figure out which part of that quote was real while we move on to the next story. Video shows shirtless New York Supreme Court judge shove cop during July altercation. This is from the NewYorkPost.com. A shirtless New York State Supreme Court justice was caught on police body cameras shoving a Buffalo cop and dropping his connections to officials during an altercation this summer. Yeah. I've brought you a bunch of stories like this. You can see the video on screen now if you're watching this live. Justice Mark Grisanti and his wife Maria were handcuffed and placed in the back of police cruisers, though no charges were filed relating to the June 23 incident. Yeah, if you're a judge, you're allowed to assault cops without consequences. If you're not, you get fucking shot. Yeah, that was the whole point of that story. Yeah, another story I'm going to have to save. YouTube bans misinformation about COVID vaccinations. And this is from The Guardian. Any claims, subtitle here, any claims about COVID vaccinations that contradict the World Health Organization will be removed, says YouTube. I don't enjoy talking about censorship, especially when it's usually targeted at us being banned from YouTube right now. But I just hope that even talking about the censorship can lead to some kind of backfiring Streisand effect. Another one from The Guardian: Facebook and Twitter restrict controversial New York Post story on Joe Biden. Yeah, social media platforms move to limit spread of article amid questions over its veracity. Twitter blocked users from posting links to the New York Post article, an unprecedented step against a major publication. Now, I'm going to have to get more into this because I'm like, Twitter? Really? Twitter? Twitter's doing that? And, so we've got a whole censorship block. I think we're going to, I don't know if we're going to save this to next week, but Barron's, governments use pandemic to crack down on online dissent, according to Watchdog. According to Reason, German-style internet censorship catches on around the world. From CBSNews.com, Trump files emergency request with Supreme Court to stop release of his tax returns. Even though it's already gotten out, what he's doing apparently is trying to get a grand jury to not be allowed to see them. So last week, a federal appeals court ruled Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance can enforce a subpoena for Mr. Trump's business records and tax returns, a blow to the president as he tries to keep those returns from a grand jury. The president's attorneys are asking the Supreme Court to grant a stay to hear the case and overturn the lower court's decisions. Again, how do you have any faith in people who just don't act with absolute transparency, or, at least, address that lack when I'm not saying, hey, absolute transparency at all times, there should never be any secrets. No. But people who can't manage it reasonably, like how do you still have faith in someone like Donald? Again, I know there aren't any Donald Trump supporters watching this show probably right now, but like, how can you still support a guy who claims that it's okay for for this major chunk of his business record and tax record to just be hidden? I don't get it. Okay, I know we're coming up on 10 minutes later. It'll just be another minute. One fun story from KATV.com. U.S. Senate debate one-sided in Libertarian Harrington's favor. Let's see if we can get this guy on the show for an interview. This is really cool. From Little Rock, the Arkansas PBS U.S. Senate debate on Wednesday was very one-sided because only one candidate participated. Libertarian Senate candidate Ricky Dale Harrington was interviewed for the full hour when incumbent GOP Senator Tom Cotton declined to join the forum. As Harrington said, "I'm a little disappointed. I was looking forward to looking him in the face and talking about the issues and having an intellectual debate on policy." He's on Fox News, I don't know how many times a week, 2 or 3 times a week, but he can't come here to address the people of Arkansas. Why would you want to support somebody that does that? And there's no Democrat challenger in this race, so it makes sense. I mean, I hate to say it makes sense from the senator's perspective to avoid this, but provides a huge opportunity for our libertarian champion in this race, Harrington, Ricky Dale Harrington, a name worth remembering, doing a great job there as a libertarian candidate in Arkansas. and not just to promote him, but this story that as libertarians gain prominence, safe prediction here, you're going to see more duopoly candidates avoiding the debates entirely. So let's see. Wow, we got our COVID stories, we got our censorship stories, and it's all these. You could get it again. All right, a couple other. Do I want to breeze through these? See, we got the true unemployment rate, Bank of England going to negative rates, wall of money coming into Bitcoin. A lot of these are stories that were sent to us from the Producers Club. I'm not gonna skip over. Facebook's Libra. Yeah, so we're gonna get into all this. I mean, I don't take my journalistic responsibility lightly of giving you a sense of what's going on in the world. CJ says I have no idea where you are in links. Yeah, I was just trying to get through the ones that I could cover it by touching on and move past. So let's all right. Let's get into let's check in with our audience and put a bow on this one before we get to with the good news on this day in history. Jim,
what's going on?
It's been a fun show. It's been a useful one. Yeah.
Definitely.
How are people enjoying this?
Yeah, I think so. Craig Doherty pointed out, he said, 2 great libertarians with a thought-provoking conversation. That was during the Dan Taxation is Theft Berman interview.
Yep, thank you.
That was where most of our comments came from, so we're going to have to go with that. People did like his opener. I'm a Statist might be getting one. The Taxation is Theft opener.
Yeah, do it. Taxationistheft.info.
I had one question. We can make it quick while somebody else had a question. Well, a comment that insinuates a question, I guess. How Dan was talking about encouraging people to not pay for things and not have their license and things like that, Ken Scott, like Alex Jones, got thousands of people in trouble trying to travel with no license. He's like, he's saying people are still being kidnapped on the side of the road for not having a license. So he's arguing that Dan is encouraging people to do things that the state is still going to be locking you in a cage for. I was thinking that just in that particular instance with the driver's license, that's the only issue. I was wondering if you're encouraging people not to have it, that is kind of a dangerous encouragement. It did come across to me like he was playing it off like they can't do anything. They can send me the ticket.
No, okay, so yeah. Let me respond. I can respond to this very quickly because Dan isn't saying, hey, everybody should just go out and drive without a driver's license and don't think twice about it. As opposed to Alex Jones saying, take these penis pills and you're going to be a new virile man like never before, and this is going to solve all your problems with super male vitality or whatever other bullshit potions he's selling. And you can bring that bullshit. And remember our friend Miko Hayes from the censorship panel. He's done a lot of work exposing people in the sovereign citizen. He would say exposing the sovereign citizen movement, where I say, no. You're exposing certain people within it. To him, it looks like, a lot of the prominent people are selling legal snake oil. And they are defrauding people when they lie about the risks or they don't point them out. At no point did Dan say, oh yeah, drive without a license in America and there's no possible negative consequence, right? If he did, I would have called him on it. Right. I absolutely, in the interview, would have interrupted and said, Dan, I would not let my audience hear that without that counterpoint. That's not at all what we are talking about here. And to the point of the question, and this goes along with a lot of the things that I advocate people do that's outside the norm. I mean, you wouldn't say, Adam, but you're telling people to homestead, and you're not telling them that they might get bit by a spider while they're out there in the wilderness, because they're camping for extended periods before they build their home on their bare land. And it's like, do I really have to point that out? But in the case of what Dan and I are advocating in the things that are legally out of the norm, we are always quick to point out the risks as responsible people. Dan is not a fraudster. I am not a fraudster. Alex Jones is. Donald Trump is. When we talk about those things, we acknowledge the risks, and we want to make sure that you are informed about those risks. I will say, however, that in most cases, the rewards far outweigh the risks. And that's why we as activists, not as snake oil salesmen, not as people charging for our legal consulting services or selling you some sovereign citizen program. No, because we want you to live better and live more free. That's what compels us to share these things. And so I appreciate the question and the opportunity to clarify this way. But I would also take the opportunity to remind my audience, if you feel that at any point I'm not doing my due diligence in pointing out those risks, yeah, step in and remind me. But know that it's not because there is no deliberate deception on my part or on Dan's in discussing these issues.
Fair enough. Sounds good. All right, let's get us some good news and wrap it up.
Well, you know what? There's not a lot. I'm looking at the good news from goodnewsnetwork.org today. There's not worth staying late for. But I will point out there's some. This is Nobel Peace Prize season, so there are a lot of, or historically there are a lot of these popping up. Nelson Mandela, F.W. de Klerk, got the Nobel Peace Prize for their efforts to end apartheid and laying the foundations for a new democratic South Africa on this day in 1993. And them getting the prize. I mean, there's a lot of people who deserved it better than those particular figureheads. Not to in any way demean their legitimate work, but the end of apartheid, that's definitely good news to celebrate. And Doctors Without Borders also received a Nobel Peace Prize for the French group's medical work on several continents on this day in 1999. Now, there's the one last bullet point here I got to point out is some bad news. Even in and of itself, and it was on this day in 2005 that Iraqis voted overwhelmingly to approve and ratify the new constitution. Who wrote it? The American military. If not literally, they certainly dictated the terms. And that the people of Iraq were tricked into going along with it to approve and ratify their new constitution. Remember, and it was this beautiful moment that a lot of us were fooled into not peeking behind the curtain just a little bit. Remember, peace fingers, purple stained fingers for Iraqis. You vote, you dip your finger in ink, and that's how they prevent double voting. Maybe at the time we might have fallen for the illusion and thought of this as good news. But looking back on it now and the tragedy and the current state of affairs in Iraq and all of the manipulations that have taken place through the American installed government since then, I can't look at this and call it good news. So I'll go to the next thing that's out of the bullet points here on goodnewsnetwork.org. It was on this day in 1951. The television sitcom I Love Lucy premiered, starring Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. Yeah, we'll call that good news. With that being said, don't forget to go to AdamVersusTheMan.com. Support the show, buy merchandise, become a patron, patreon.com/AdamVersusTheMan. Join the Producers Club. Really, if you're watching the show live, what are we? Holy shit, we're 19 minutes late ending the show today. If you're watching this far into Adam versus the Man, please join the Producers Club, be a part of it, be in the Telegram chat. It is so much fun. And then the Cigar Federation promo, of course. Promo code Adam10 gets you 10% off one way or another, tomorrow we will be doing Cigars and Sunsets. Not sure about how or where, but probably about 5, probably about sunset, a little before that, 5:30. Hopefully, the building, our studio office is being delivered tomorrow at noon. Again, thank you so much to everybody who has made that possible. And yeah, we'll be showing you that on Cigars and Sunsets tomorrow evening, and hopefully broadcasting from our new studio on Monday if we can get it all done in time. The plan is to get it delivered at noon, hopefully be done with all that by 1. We can go to Flagstaff, to Home Depot, and back in time to do Cigars and Sunsets from here in Gardenia. We've also got some fun visitors from California joining us this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun here in Gardenia, building out the studio office Freedom Factory. So again, I can't thank you all enough. Craig in the Producers Club, great show today, crew. All right, thanks, brother. Mwah. Peace and love, y'all. Choose happiness and be excellent to each other.